This is the Chupacabra prototype that we used to have scanned to make our large bronze life-size Chupacabra. It's Aves Apoxie Sculpt, and it used to be in several pieces. Hey, Brian. And so we took this down to Deep in the Heart Art Foundry here in Texas, in Bastrop. And they scanned it and turned it into a large styrofoam piece. And that large bronze ended up at a guy's ranch down in South Texas. Son of a gun. Chupacabras are fun because there's really no rules with them. It can be virtually anything. I just threw a bunch of clay on this side because it was kind of uneven. Thanks, Lewis. Thanks, Julio. Yeah, the Aves can get pretty tight with detail. It's just a trick of knowing when to leave it alone and let it set. Because it looks a little wet. It looks a little different when it's wet than when it finally cures. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration. You can see some of these points that look extremely white, like right there, and this stuff up there, so that's going to totally go away. But a lot of times if you're watching TV and they show somebody in a museum, they'll be using Aves to repair something or sculpt a secondary part because it's so applicable. It cures on site, so you don't have to bake it. It can hold a bunch of different textures. This is the Aves we use. So we use the natural. I think it says natural on here somewhere. Natural, yeah. Where does it say? That Part B. Yeah, natural. There it is, sideways. So that's the one we like. And we order that off of Amazon.com. I just made a couple of the claws bigger because why not? And it'll make them a little bit stronger. But the wings come off, and then this comes off. It's supposed to come off. There he comes. Easy peasy. So anyway. Just order a small batch. It should be $40, $44. You'll get 2 tubs like this, and it's 2 pounds. Well, it's 4 pounds worth altogether because each tub is 2 pounds. So he's all right without the wings. He's just more of a kind of a werewolf with spikes. But this was never meant to be a kit or anything. It was just used for that purpose, to make a large styrofoam sketch. And so now we're just fixing it up a little bit for eBay. Hey Jordu, how are you? I was just reading that stuff on your page. That's awful. And very frustrating, I'm sure. So what we do a lot of times is, he's asking about, so we'll have just holes for those wing pegs to stick into. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy at all. And so then there will be some Aves on either side of it, just to keep it in place. And if this was going to be a kit, it would look nicer than that. But the way it's just this kind of sketch thing. Hey, Martin. But yeah, we're putting this up on eBay tomorrow night. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, Jordan, this is Aves. And we wear gloves for about the first hour to mix it, and then for a while. Thanks, man. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, our armature is just wire. You can see the floral wire, but inside the wing there is almalloy like this. It's strong, but it's real easy to cut through if you have to go back and cut through it for production purposes. If you have a fine jeweler saw, you can go right through it. Jordu, I'd love that, really. I always joke that we collaborated on that little where you worked on an armature at Monsterpalooza one time and just threw some muscles on it, but it was kick-ass looking. And then somebody molded it with all the crazy wires, and I never understood how they molded that thing. Thanks, Sean. I'm glad you like it. I just totally fucked up this left eye right before I turned the camera on. So this is just kind of a save. I don't really know if that's really what it's going to happen. But, so it's, with the base, it's about 17 inches. The camera's at kind of an angle looking up at it, so that didn't look right. Yeah, Jordu, I'd really love for that to happen someday. That'd be a lot of fun. Thanks, man. Much appreciated. Oh, thanks, Sean. Man, it's got some awkward stuff to it, like around the back. You know, we're going to sell it just as it is, you know, just a sketch. But there's some stuff I'm not crazy about. This arm's a little bit long. We might do a little bit smaller version of the same thing. Because like I said, Chupacabras are just fun. It's so wide open. Thanks, y'all. You know, the camera phones always do something. They always fisheye things a little bit. So you never know. Sometimes it makes heads look a little bit bigger than they are. Hey, Amilcar. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Wow, it's great to have all these great sculptors like Jordu and Sean and Amilcar. I'm feeling a little pressure now. We do still use Super Sculpey, Martin. Just different projects, you know, are suited for different materials. Yeah, the cure time on Aves, it definitely takes a little bit getting used to. You have to almost find other things to do sometimes while it's curing, and like realize, okay, this is part of the process that I have to let it sit there and cure now. Thanks, Clint. Yeah, there are people in the Shiflett Brothers camp that think we should mold this. But I'm like, nah, let's throw it up on eBay and make a smaller one. Because this is a little bit big. I mean, for a resin kit. For a bronze, yeah, it'd probably be... So anyway, I've got to tighten that wing up for sure. It wants to come off. Yeah, Martin, I'll sit here and have some coffee and look at it and just nitpick it and think about little things. Yes, Clint, I really want to do that, the tiger with the butterfly. That is definitely one. And so we'll let this cure and then take it in the other room and Dremel it where I have the shop vac set up for that kind of thing. And so we'll Dremel it with different Dremel heads, and so we know when we're putting the Aves on, hey, we're going to Dremel little pieces of detail into it later. So it's not just when it cures, it's set in stone and it can never be altered. And one of my favorite things is a round number 2 X-Acto. So dirty it has to be real. But I find round X-Actos have a more organic cut. And so this thing is dull as hell. It's almost like a chisel. It's almost like a small scale chisel. And so we'll carve a lot of the Aves, and then we'll file it a lot, like a big file like this. That will resolve the shit out of some stuff, big time. And so we keep this on hand. A lot of files, lots of files, lots of sandpaper. And it'll become set, it'll become hard at about 3 hours, where it feels hard to the touch and it's not workable anymore. But you want to wait about 6 to 8 hours before you go to sand it or file it and possibly Dremel it, because it'll gunk up. It sure will. It'll look set, but it really sets in about, you know, it says, I think on the thing, like 24 hours. But, so I don't know. These were going to be little horns. I'm scared to touch this because it's going to fall off again. But, you know, the other thing is, I've been working in Sculpey for 25 years. So it's just fun. It's like paper clay or Paltaya or any other gosh darn thing besides polymer clay. Whoops. Okay, I think we're back. But you know, fur is hard. Fur is hard. And I'm not crazy about it. Some of this is just going to be little warts in lieu of covering this whole thing in fur, which is not appealing to me at all. What I like to do is scales. Well, it's a love-hate thing, but given time, if we were going to produce this as a kit, I would probably like scales on it. Just imagine there were some sweet whiskers right there. Thanks, Michael and Robert. Yeah, it's just kind of generic Chupacabra. I don't think there's anything too crazy on it. There's no antennae, or it's just kind of a big-headed monster dog with wings. Got to get over here and do some veins of the... This epoxy sculpt, I just mixed it at the beginning of the, maybe about 15 minutes before the beginning of this thing. So it's pretty soft. It's softer than Sculpey, and then it'll become Sculpey-like in density, and then it'll just get harder and harder and harder. And I've got a little tub of water sitting over here next to me so I can dip my finger into it and I keep trying to make the mane like a bigger thing. No, we've never used a pasta roller. What I have used is the where you push the clay through it. I'm blanking on what you call those things. The die pushers. And I always well, a couple of times I've let the clay cure inside it, so it ruined it. I still haven't said the word. Extruders, thank you. Yes, the extruders. So, those are very useful. You know, you can't sculpt coils like those extruders can extrude. So those they can be very helpful for wires and technical looking stuff. Yeah, but with Aves you really have to clean them out really well, because the least amount of Aves will clog it right up. But I found with the wires and stuff, it's best to extrude them into kind of coils or round shapes and then let them set. And then try to work with them. Because if you extrude them and they're still soft and you try to do stuff with them, they just become junk. They're not like mechanically clean and perfect like they are if you just let them set and they become, and you can get stuff really tight if you're working on some kind of thing that would have wires. I'm looking at it through the camera. So that's kind of weird. It's not like taking a picture, but it's similar. These teeth are looking gnarly. I've got to clean these up. Well, if nothing else happens, we have a Jordu project in the works, I feel. Stick on there, little buddy. Oh, Remy, I was just joking. He came in and said we should work on something together. So, fingers crossed. I don't know if y'all can hear that sound in the background. It's my dog. It might sound like a seal or a bear cub or something. It is difficult sculpting with the gloves. I hate it, but you kind of get used to it. And after about an hour, you don't have to wear the gloves anymore. There's kind of a witching hour of when it won't stick to your hands, but it will stick to itself. And that's the prime working spot. Sometimes I'll mix some up and just set it aside for like half an hour and let it firm up, because right when you mix it up, it's pretty soft, and that's when you first mix it, can have a little tub of water, dip your hands into it, and it'll slide around real easy. So if like you have an armature going, that very initial stage when you mix it, that's when it's great to just strengthen up an armature or bulk it up or whatever you're going to use it for. Yeah, it sticks really after a certain point. It doesn't want to stick to itself. I'd say at about 2.5 hours, and even then, you know, you can hit a spot with super glue and then put some on, and that's a way to get real specific detail. Like if this was further about an hour further along, and I could hit a spot like that and then stick a little piece on right there, and that's never gonna move again. And so I can just kind of touch it on, and I might dip my fingers into a little bit of water so my fingers aren't sticking to it right here. And all these big horns have wires in them. Like you can see these wires. So all the big horns have wires in them. It's these little ones that are going to be okay without a wire. Hopefully. That's why I keep jamming this fingernail down, is because it doesn't have a wire. All these have wires in them. There are these great little things that hang off of a dog's mouth. They're so weird looking. That's way too big, but I wanted to try to do them just because they're fun. It's like, I don't know what they are evolutionarily, but I think it's a place where like food would catch and then the puppies would lick it from their moms. And that's a big dog wanting some food. So I'm going to feed him real quick. Alright, well I just wanted to work on this a little bit. Like I said, we're putting it up on eBay tomorrow night. We start all our stuff at 0, and so check it out if you can. Alright, thanks everybody for participating in the forum. We appreciate it, and we hope everybody's having fun. Good night.